President of the United States is giving stocks advice. Should we be listening to him?
Yes, probably. I think he's guiding that he wants this weekend to have positive headline risk for markets. He is the most powerful man in the world. I think that's often can be said about the US president, but for markets in particular at the moment, because the biggest story in markets is Trump's trade policy and what he'll do around that. So he is the most important person to listen to. It doesn't mean he'll 100% be correct, but I think he is certainly very much pushing for a positive headline out of this weekend. What will that be? Well, the expectations from the markets are that we're going to see severe de-escalation between US and China. And, you know, what people are really hoping for is we get some kind of pausing of tariffs or some kind of reduction of tariffs while negotiations are ongoing, and just some positive messages that they are on track to backtrack significantly from the threats of a month ago.
I mean, that might be what the market's hoping for, Mark, but Sean Donnan, our trade reporter, is saying that they're just going to air their grievances. You know, if we get a Zelensky moment in Geneva, harking back to the Oval Office, what happens to the market then?
I think, actually, the sound bites out of the weekend are less important than what they practically decide to do on tariffs for the negotiation period. So no one has real high expectations of anything concrete coming out of it in terms of course, we can't get a trade deal instantly. It's just going to be talking, as you say, about their grievances, maybe outlining what the first steps are for talks or for a framework, etc. However, the big thing to watch is if the US decides to say, look, we're going to pause tariffs on China, or we're going to reduce them to 10% while negotiations are ongoing, or we're going to delay them for another 90 days because of positive messages, then it doesn't matter how negative they are or how grumbling they are. That pause is what the market is looking for. So that's the thing we're really looking for this weekend. Do they kind of pause or delay tariffs and provide that kind of gateway? And that'll happen no matter what the sound bites are. And because Trump is promising something good this weekend, there's a high likelihood we get some action like that. And if we don't, the market will be devastated on Monday, because market expectations are very optimistic for something positive to come out of the weekend.
Well, Mark, lean into that doomsday message, if you will. What happens on Monday morning in terms of that market ripple effect if they don't get what's priced in right now? What kind of market price action are we looking at?
If we don't get a pausing of China of tariffs, or some kind of reduction of Chinese tariffs, or a delay, or a sign that's about to happen imminently, I think global markets will be hit very badly on Monday. It's particularly bad for US stocks and Chinese stocks, but being the two most important stock markets, it's going to ripple around everywhere. So I think, go ahead.
Okay, just Mark, the other side. How much of the good news is already priced? We've known that this has been coming for a little. I'm trying to sort of. I don't know how the symmetry works here. There's a lot of bad on one side, but how much good is there on the other side, considering we've already anticipated that there's some good coming?
I think that the structural story remains negative, because the damage that is being done regardless of what we get out of this weekend. So if we get a positive headline this weekend, which Trump is guiding towards and wants to deliver, we get a serious squeeze. But it's a squeeze that will be sold into. It's a squeeze the Sell America trade. It'll be very punchy in the short term. But the fact is, the price of doing business for American corporates is rising significantly from months ago. And the policy uncertainty around the US has risen significantly. And the lack of enthusiasm to do business with US corporates has risen significantly. All these things remain the same. So you're going to get a very powerful squeeze in a positive headline, but it will be sold into. We're still going to have problems. You know, we're still going to have the stock market probably lower in a couple of weeks from now, or maybe even 2 or 3 weeks from now. I think it'll happen quite quickly. We'll fade that, even though the initial move will be quite powerful. On the other hand, if we get a disappointing headline this weekend, well, then we just trade that bearish story very aggressively until Trump is forced by the market to backtrack again.